Hey everybody,
Hello, how are you?
I'm Alvin,
And I'm Marcy. And this is Life and Marriage with Alvin and Marcy.
So folks, we first thing we want to do this afternoon is give you a trigger alert. We are doing an episode today that runs deep in our heart. And our goal through this episode is to help others go through a time of life that's unexpected, but we want to show that God definitely can deliver. So we're going to put a trigger alert up, and we're going to begin our story. So this episode is about losing a loved one to homicide. We know that this world, that this nation, it is constantly on an uprise, and someone is losing a child or losing a husband or losing a loved one every day to violence. And so we unfortunately have experienced this with the loss of our son. Our son Lamar was 16 years old when he was murdered out of the city that we were in, and we just went through a dark and tragic time. I remember the night very clearly, that when I found out the news that he passed away, and he had gotten murdered, and it was so unreal to me, and it just took me to a place that I never thought I would be. Burying a child is not a natural thing. We're supposed to, our children are supposed to bury us, and this is a place that we didn't choose to be, but it happened. And so our goal is to show tonight that we are healed, we are delivered, that doesn't take away from the memories of our loved one, but we know that many people are where we have been. And so our goal is to help you get through those times. It happened in 2000, and he was 6 days short of his 17th birthday when he was murdered. After that, we began, after some years of trying to heal, and we started joining support groups. And I recommend that you join a support group. Look for someone to help you walk through. And so we begin with looking at support groups and joining support groups, and we learned a lot, and it helped.
Helped our whole family.
Helped the family, as well as counseling and therapy. But there was a time around 2005, 2006 that we had gotten to a place where we believed that God had given us a ministry to help others. And so we began the thoughts of our own ministry, and we planned the ministry called the Blood Healing Ministry. The Blood Healing Ministry was, our motto was healing the bloodshed on the street by the bloodshed on the cross. And that's what we tried to do. So we began gathering resources. We began
holding meetings.
Yeah, we would actually go to the home of people who had just lost loved ones, and just to let them see that you still can live. And so we did that. We planned that for those amount of years, but we really didn't get it started until after another tragedy occurred in our family.
So that was in 2007. I lost my sister, Christine, and she was a victim of domestic violence, was murdered on her job. This really sent us back to day one from when we lost Lamar, and really had us like, okay, what is going on here? We prayed and we asked God, show us what to do. And basically what we heard was to keep going. Your services are needed. you need it for you, for your healing. So that's when we really took off with the ministry.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so it's not an easy thing to go through. And even though it's been since 2000 and 2007, we still have our moments, but you know what? We know what to do now. We know how to reach out for help.
Yeah.
So
You moved to Georgia.
yeah, we did move to Georgia in 2013.
Yeah, and we basically moved to Georgia after some years of doing the blood healing services. We got to a point of burnout.
Yeah.
And to where we found out that we were helping many people get through these times. I mean, we would help people find lawyers. We would help people find homes, places to live. We would go to homes that have just lost loved ones, and we would give them resources to make their lives a little easier during that time. And so we moved to Georgia, and we began looking for support groups to join again. At that point, we needed some more.
We needed a lot of help.
Yeah, we needed some more to be filled up.
So what we did was we were part of an organization in Pennsylvania, and we looked for a local chapter here in Georgia, and we ran into this young lady that we're going to introduce to you, and she can come on the camera now. Her name is Candace Sims. She is an amazing woman. She's a mother, she's a wife, she's a grandmother, and she is an author. Her book is called If You Love Me, Keep My Commandments. And I do have a copy, and when I get a chance, I need you to sign my copy. She's also a victim advocate, a bereavement and life coach, program director for advocacy support, and she is the creator of Conceptual Empowerment LLC, and she hails from Atlanta, Georgia. I would like to introduce to you Candace Sims.
Hey, Candace.
Hey, Candace.
Hey, Alvin and Marcy.
How are you?
On this evening, I feel like I'm about to do a fireside chat with y'all.
Yeah. And as Marcy said, we came across Candace with the Organization of Parents of Murdered Children. That's where we met. And so from there, we just begin to
build a relationship.
Yeah. So Candace, tell us what you're doing a little bit right now.
Oh my goodness. Wow. So here we are in 2024, and I'm still on this journey.
Wow.
You know, this year on April the 7th was 17 years that I've lost Marcus. 17 years. And I was in the blue room. While I was in the blue room listening to y'all's story and intro, I'm glad you did the disclaimer, because, you know, when you're listening to the stories of, first of all, those that you love, those that you know, and you can identify with that pain, it brings up these feelings of how important of a camaraderie and a friendship with people who are experiencing these hurts and these pains is important. It's so important, because, you know, we definitely can't do life alone, and we definitely can't do life with a tragic experience like homicide. You can't do that alone either.
Absolutely not.
You know, and so I love how you talked about true deliverance, you know, and I never really thought about evolving into a bereavement coordinator was part of my deliverance.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's true deliverance. We all really don't know how much we need to be delivered from stuff that, not just stuff that we go through, but even from bad decisions that we're about to make that we don't even know decisions.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So listen, I
Yeah.
heard actress Regina King talk about a statement. She said, "Grief is love that has no place to go to go." So,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on that? We kind of had a short conversation about that.
That. I heard that. And so, you know, I love Regina King. I loved her from when she was on 227. And when I heard that she had lost her son to suicide, and I'll be the first to say that my son Marcus died of homicide. And so to be able to identify with a parent who lost their child to suicide, I can't identify with that. That's a pain where, you know, there's so many unanswered questions, you know, especially when your children are operating in a posture that they're okay, you know, but they have a whole going on to the point where they're making a decision with that they're going to end their lives. But anyway, when I heard her say that, made that statement that grief is love with nowhere to go, it jolted me for a minute, you know, and I wasn't even thinking about what context she was saying that in as a mother struggling with a son that died by suicide. It could have come from that. Because my motto all throughout these years is grief is the price that we pay for love, you know. And so, you know, when I think about the word love, ultimately, I'm thinking about God, you know, and how he's everywhere and how he's in all things and how he is everywhere all at the same time, you know. And so love is always directed toward him, you know. And so, you know, to say that grief is love with nowhere to go, I guess on my journey of deliverance, I'm like, you know, my love always has somewhere to go.
Yeah.
My grief, I'm learning now. In that first year, yeah, I didn't know where my grief was taking me. I went through every stage of emotion of grief, 5 times on top of 5 times on top of 5 times, you know, and wondering, is life going to be just like this for me? Does it ever get any better?
Yes.
You know, so in that year one, you do feel like that grief is something, is a love that has nowhere to go, or grief is the price that we pay for love, you know, because I believe that the intensity of grieving that you do for someone is matched with the intensity of love that you have for them.
Yes.
The love that you have is a level of grief that you're going to have. You know, if you ain't give a hill of beans about somebody that died, you're not going to be grieving over them as much as you would from someone who you deeply loved and had an intimate relationship with.
That is good. That is true. You know, I want to reiterate the camaraderie statements that you made. I used to say that we joined by no choice of ours an exclusive club that others don't understand.
Yeah.
And we don't want them to understand.
Yeah.
And so it's important that those who have gone through this begin a bond with someone else. We've met so many people who isolate themselves and try to isolate themselves through, you know, through the stages of grief. And we know that any stage of grief that you get stuck in, it's deteriorating.
Yeah.
So you have to move through the stages of grief. So here's a question I have. Men, women, children all grieve differently. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so I heard someone a couple of weeks ago talk about a funeral of a loved one that they were at. And the adults got a chance to talk. The men said their statement. The women said their statement. And at the end at the end of the funeral, during the repast, there was a child who was seemingly disconnected, and someone asked, are you all right? And they said, no, I'm not all right. And they were like, what's wrong? I said, I love them too. And I didn't get a chance to say a thing about it. And so at many times through our grief, we forget about the children. And, sometimes we forget about each other through our grief. So what would you say, how would you tackle that? How would you, in your profession, how do you deal with that?
Wow, there's so much to say about that. And thank you for inviting that question. The first thing I thought about when you posed that question is someone had told me that when you lose a parent, you lose part of your past. When you lose a child, you lose part of your future. And if you fail to deal with either of those losses, you lose part of your present.
Wow.
That's good.
Man, that's so profound. Before I lost Marcus, Marcus had lost his dad when he was 11. And so at that time, I had no grief training. I had no grief coaching. I had no, I couldn't navigate, to help him deal with the loss of his father. And so the only thing that I could share with him was, well, Marcus, I lost my dad when I was 8. This is something you'll get over, and I didn't give him, like, I was never given the proper or the ample space to be able to grieve that loss. Marcus and his dad was tight. They were really, really tight. And so with me not being able to help him and get him the resources that he needed for his grief, that started a life of him just living so recklessly, because he lost his best friend, and so it was his dad, yes, but it was also his best friend. And so that's the relationship that he had as a child dealing with grief. And see, his dad and I weren't together anymore, so I wasn't grieving his dad the way that he was grieving his dad. And so, and that is my personal testimony, or my testament to the truth, the universal truth, that everybody grieves differently. And you have to be able to, if you're not a person who can be present with someone who's grieving the way they need you to be present, then as a parent or as a guardian or as a next of kin, it is your responsibility to find that thing, that person, to be that present, that person that holds that present space to help that person deal with that grief, because grief is an energy, and if you don't deal with it, it will deal with you.
Absolutely. That is true. The way men deal with grief, in my case, as a father, husband, I had other, my daughters. I took on the role of protector. I turned into Atlas, and I'm going to hold the world in my hands. Hold my family in my hands.
That's heavy.
Yeah, it is heavy, and we are not really designed for that,
No.
And so the way I grieve, I found myself literally doing things that I would normally do, thinking things I would normally thinking, and to be totally transparent, drinking, and those are the things that men do to try to alleviate, mask the pain, the blood, come home and be the soldier again. But it doesn't work. It doesn't work. Take my word for it. It doesn't work, because one day my knees crumbled. And I had to get some help. I
Mm-hmm.
had to get some help for myself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this protector, all the time I thought I was protecting, I was really hurting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
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 So, Alvin and I, we discussed this what next question that we have. We talked about when did we come to the realization that what happened with our son, what was the one thing that said, wow, this happened? So
Mm-hmm.
for you, what was the moment that
Mm. Um, I guess it was really for me the final time when we put him in the ground. For me,
Yeah.
that like this is real.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is over.
Yeah.
Never see
Mhm.
my son again.
Yeah.
Again, during that time, I was
Mhm.
protected,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
so getting him, you know, putting him away,
Mm-hmm.
putting him to rest
Mm-hmm.
was a chapter that
Mm-hmm.
I got to that I had to begin to turn the page now. All that
Mm-hmm.
was taken care of, I had taken care of him as far as I could take care of him.
Mhm.
Right.
And so now he's in God's hands.
Yeah.
So that's when the reality kind of hit
Wow.
me. What
I
about
think
you?
Wow.
I said for Lamar would be he was
Mm-hmm.
getting on the airplane from the age of 5 to visit family back and forth, and the moment that we had the funeral in the other state, and then getting to the airport and watching his coffin be unloaded on the plane, I
Mm.
fell apart because I'm like, this is his last plane ride, and
Wow.
for
Wow.
me, that was crushing. That was crushing. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. I can so identify with that myself. As I'm listening to you guys, I'm thinking about, so many triggering episodes or moments for me personally that really made it real for me. And definitely, them lowering the casket into the ground. But I remember the day that I found out Marcus died. It was Easter, and we were together the day before, and I was with him all day, and it was a good day, you
Mhm.
know, one of those days where Marcus didn't have anything planned. And so he chose to chose to hang out with his mom and his 15-month-old son, because I picked him up from his mom's house, and the three of us just hung out. We went shopping. We filled up his refrigerator and with food and made sure he had food. And y'all moms do,
Yeah.
they're grown, moms still moms. And about 4 o'clock that afternoon, we kissed and hugged. And I said, I'll be back tomorrow to pick you up for dinner for Easter. We were going to have dinner with his dad's mom, his grandmother on his paternal side.
Mm.
And so I'm going to pick him up and take him over there. I got out of church and text them, I'm on my way, leaving church now. And it wasn't uncommon for him not to text me back. So I didn't think anything of it. And so as I'm riding to his apartment, getting this eerie feeling, in my stomach, like, where is that coming from? And so, and as I'm trying to go fast, faster and drive faster and get there. And as I get to the apartment, I'm rolling up to the apartment, and then the feeling started to get heavier and heavier. And I'm like, what in the world is this feeling? And so as I'm driving closer to his unit and turning the corner, I'm seeing nothing but people stand outside. I see cars. I see police cars. I see the coroner's van, and still not making the connection. My mind is telling me, it's not Marcus. It's not Marcus. It's not, or my heart is telling me it's not Marcus. It's not Marcus. It's not Marcus. And my mind is telling me it could be Marcus. It could be Marcus. So I parked as close as I could to his apartment. and I'm trying to make my way, through the crowd. It's like, what's going on? What's going on? I need to pick up my son, and I don't see him standing out here. Evidently, something was going on, but I didn't see him. And I got as far as I could until a police officer just kind of, pushed me back. He held up his hands and you can't go any further, just step aside. And I told him who I was and I pointed to the apartment. And he's like, we'll be with you as soon as we find out what's going on. And at that point, you got adrenaline is rushing. Then all of a sudden, the door opens. And to see someone push a stretcher out with the cloth draped over it was my trigger that this is real. Yeah. This is real. And, I would never forget that day. And it's painful to even relive that day, but it's also healing to relive that day as well. And quickly, another triggering moment I had was that same year around Thanksgiving, because Marcus, he was the type of guy, I don't know where he would find these friends of his from, but it just seemed like nobody had parents that would cook Thanksgiving dinner and would just be with their families. He would always bring these folks over because he knew I would cook, And you know how like a normal family would have food left over for days. With Marcus and his friends, there would never be anything left. And so that same year, I just knew these guys would come. And so I cooked more than I have when he was alive, thinking that this person is going to come, this person is going to come, this person is going to come. And my cousin was living with me at the time. And he's like, Ken, I really don't think you need to be cooking all of this food. And I'm like, no, I just know they were going to come. I had turkeys and I had chicken and I had mac and cheese. I mean, big, those large size pans, that feed 50 people. Anyway, to make a long story short, nobody showed up.
Wow.
And my cousin, bless his heart, he probably ate about 3 plates.
Tried to eat up for you, huh?
Because he knew I was hurting so bad, He probably ate himself into a stupor.
Wow.
Yeah.
But that was another triggering, moment for me to help me to understand. Yeah, this is real. Never gonna be the same.
Yeah. I'm sure there's many stages of grief. So could you go over a few of them? So that someone out here who may have just lost a loved one in this way understand what they're dealing with.
Right. And so when I started on this journey, I learned that there were primarily about 5 to 6 stages of grief. And the first one is always the shock, that shock factor. And time I'm watching shows, there used to be a time where I couldn't watch those first 48 shows or but I watch them now because I like to identify with this generation, and they receive or accept, a tragic situation that's happened. And it's always the same shocking reaction. The mom falling to her knees, the mom screaming, no. It's just a myriad of questions that go on in your head when you're in that shock stage. So shock is something that everyone goes through when you experience a loss like this, a homicide that's very untimely and unexpected. And then there's that denial, the denial stage, to where you are, like me, cooking that dinner, knowing that it's going to be the same as it was last year. And, this grief thing is not really that real, life still carries on and your life has changed. I used to sit on the couch and wait for Marcus to come to the house because like clockwork, it was 3:30. He would come by after work and kind of, hey, see what you got cooking. And, and for the first 3 months, I would just sit there and wait for him to come. I would even pull the curtain back to see if I can hear his car coming down the street, that denial, and it's just so amazing how powerful the brain is, when it's connected with the heart and when it's disconnected with the heart.
Yes.
Because the more you try not to deal with what's going on with this new situation that's going on in your life, your mind will be so disconnected from your heart that you want to still operate in the posture that you operated before this loss happened. And it's a denial. It's you're in that denial stage. Then there's I like to group together bargaining and guilt. That bargaining, if only I had done this, if only I put Lamar on that plane, he'd have been here. Or if only I had left that baby with Marcus, whoever would have come into that apartment wouldn't have shot him. That guilt and that bargaining comes in to make us think that, we're the God of someone else's universe that could have prohibited, this that God already knew was going to happen, was destined to happen. And, bargaining and guilt keeps you from growing and healing. Because it constantly reminds you of things that you could have done and that you should have done. And it keeps you guilty for not doing those things. What I tell my clients is, you can't allow that bargaining and that guilt to exactly, because the decision that you made at the time that you did it was the best decision you could have made, because if it wasn't, you would have done something else.
Yes.
So you have to trust the decision that you made to kind of dispel and move away all of that guilt and that bargaining that comes in. And then there's depression. Depression was the stage that I feared the most because of people in my family that struggle and suffer with depression, and depression is real, I didn't want to go through a depression. So I tried to build myself up and make myself appear to be okay. Hold back the tears and hold back the sadness. And sadness, what I had to learn is sadness, depression is a real thing. And everybody goes through sadness, depression. Sadness, depression is nothing that you have to treat chemically. Because sadness, depression is real. It's something that happened that you are unhappy about. It's painful and it hurts, and I need to cry about it.
Yes.
But when sadness, depression is left untreated, it turns to a clinical depression. And you don't want to leave your sadness, depression untreated. You want to address it. If you see someone not being their happy, jovial, giving, grateful self, it's time to lean in and say, okay, what's really going on? You're not you. You're not you. And let them know that sadness, depression is a real thing. And then at the time, the final stage, that last stage was acceptance. Just accepting that, okay, what happened, and I need to learn how to live differently with this grief and with this pain. And it's not convincing yourself that what happened is okay, and expect it. But it's knowing that, okay, after going through all of the shock and the denial and the anger and the rage and the guilt and the bargaining, I have to accept that this is now my life. And I have to find a way to navigate through it. And once you do, they've discovered and uncovered that there is another stage after acceptance called meaning. Find meaning in it. That's when you get to a point of acceptance. Now, you don't stop going through all of the stages. You still continue to go through stages. But when you reach that stage of acceptance and you've learned to find meaning in it, then that's when you want to do what you guys are doing today. You want something in honor of Lamar, A lot of people will start scholarship funds in the name of the person that they lost. We'll do annual balloon release.
Right.
People will foundations and nonprofits. You know, you realize that there's a new meaning in this thing called grief. You know, if you allow it, grief will allow you to live better.
That is so good.
That is good.
You know, one of the things that we used to tell people, you know, when they asked us, you know, how do you guys make it? And so, you know, we tell them we didn't allow the last days, we didn't allow
that
the lowering
tragic
in the
day.
ground or that tragic day to define our loved one.
There you go.
There were so many years that God allowed them with us
Yes.
to have joy about. And
Yes.
so we celebrate the joys of the life, you know, that God allowed us to have. Are there's, you know, things like that you do? I know my son's
40th.
He enjoyed strawberry shortcake. It would have been his 40th birthday. And so what do? We go out and get the ingredients to make strawberry shortcake and laugh and talk and about some times that, because he was a character, you know. So we'd laugh and talk about some of the time. Yes, it would bring us to tears sometimes, but we have to
laugh and cry.
Joyful tears, And so we, you know, that's what we choose to do, and it's a choice.
It is.
Yes.
You have to make to live. I remember a lady that hadn't come out of her house in 4 years. She would have things delivered to her home. She wouldn't come out her front door.
Oh, wow.
So someone finally got her to come to a group, and she began coming and then coming more and coming more until she was able to break loose from the prison that she allowed herself to create, you know. And it was a prison. Do you have something special that you memorized, Marcus?
Oh my goodness. You know, Marcus was a character. You know, he really was a character, and he know I was always uptight. You know, I'd come home from work and I would just go through the house to make sure he's done what he needed to do. If it was sweeping the floor or vacuuming or cleaning up the kitchen, and I wouldn't even say hello. How was your day? How was school? You know, I would just go straight to just put the white glove on and just go through the house. And he knew me like clockwork, like I knew him like clockwork. So one day I came home. I went straight to the kitchen, and he had already devised, I know what my mom's going to do. I know she's going to go straight to the kitchen. So he took a rubber band and he tied a rubber band around the spout of the kitchen sink, you know, the spray. And he really tight so that when the water, and he aimed it straight to right. So he knew as soon as I turned that water on, that the water would come out of that spout. And so he didn't say anything. He was just waiting, and all of a sudden he heard because I had turned on that water, and that cold water just came straight in the middle of my, and I couldn't do anything but laugh. I couldn't do anything but laugh. And so now, you know, he has taught me not to take life so doggone serious. Laugh a little. You know, calm down, laugh a little. And his thing was lasagna. So every time I make lasagna, you know, it's almost like I'm making it for him. You know, I still have a letter that he had wrote me because at one time he was short on gas, and I think I might have gave him $10 for gas or something. And, you know, he wrote this letter, and I love you, Mom, and thank you so much for the $10 that you gave me because I was getting a little short before my paycheck, yada, yada, yada. And thank you so much for the lasagna. You always cooking my favorite dish. And, you know, so I kept that letter and I framed it.
Yes. Wonderful time.
He loved lasagna.
Marcy's sister, Tuffy, I call her Marcy's sister, but she was my sister also. And she used to bake a cake. We called it a black cake. It had food.
It's chocolate cake with chocolate chip morsels in it. And let me tell you, you talk about the most moist, delicious cake.
Yeah, I wasn't a chocolate cake eater, but when she made that black cake, it was all on.
Yes.
And she left the gift to our daughter, Jaleesa Tech.
She's our baker in the house.
And so when that black cake, she's got it down. It always puts us in tears because it's
yeah,
so
it's
much
like nostalgia. It's kind of like the memories come flooding back, you know.
Those are the times that we want people to be able to get to.
Yeah.
Joyous times.
Exactly. Exactly. You know, let me say a little bit about that because that's so important that you doing what you do, you want people to get to a point where they can talk about their loved one, where they can say the name, because there was a time that I couldn't even say his name.
Yeah.
I had to take pictures down off the wall because I couldn't stand to see his pictures. It hurt so much that he wasn't here. And so what I realized when I started doing groups is, you know, I'm going to start helping people who have gone through what I've gone through. And I'm doing it all wrong. You know, because I had no training and no guidance. I just wanted to do something. And so what I learned was in the first couple of years of me doing group supports and getting together with people on a one-on-one basis, I wasn't being transparent about what I was going through and what I would be and who Marcus was. I would always hide the fact that he was a street kid, you know, because I didn't want people to judge me that, okay, she didn't have control of her son and that's why what happened to him happened to him. So I concocted this idea that, you know, I'm going to help people, but I'm just going to give them part of the story, you know. And so that did not work. I didn't have any people in my network. I didn't have people wanting to get with me or to trust me with things that were hard and difficult for them. And so one day the Holy Spirit was like, Candace, you need to share everything about Marcus. And so once I realized that when I met someone who had just lost their son and they were struggling with the fact that they had a street kid too, and they didn't want to reveal that because they didn't want any judgment from me. Before I would even let them share their story, I would share mine about how he was a gangbanger and how he sold drugs and this, that, and the other. But what happened to him happened inside of his apartment.
Yeah.
So he came in and took his life. He did not deserve to die because of the type of life that he lived. People started really opening up and feeling like they could trust me with what was going on with them. And that's where the healing comes in. When people feel like they can trust you with what's really intensely hurting them, that's when the healing starts. And so you guys definitely have come up with a plan. You've always been genuine. You've always been sincere. You've always been supportive. And so we don't have to talk for years. And if we were to pick back up, you know, run into each other, we would pick up.
Because of the connection that we had.
That connection. And that's what you want to be able to do with people who you encounter on this journey, to be able to connect with them. But you can only do it if you're vulnerable and if you're transparent and authentic in what it is that you do to help them come into their own healing.
Yeah.
Glad you made.
Candace, this has been an awesome time. And we can keep going on and on, but I want people to know how to get in touch with you. And can you just give a little description of your services that you provide?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, Conceptual Empowerment is the name of my small business. And it originally was designed to help young men who were caught up in the juvenile justice system. And it just kind of grew and evolved into now helping parents who have lost their children to homicide. And sometimes I get calls from people who haven't lost a child, but have lost a spouse or lost a parent, and maybe not to homicide, but maybe by illness, you know. And so in learning that there were so many people needing to talk to someone about their deep loss, I had to go ahead and get me a certified coaching degree to be able to meet people where they are, not just the parents with the children who are lost by homicide. And so the website is, and I do it and it's not a structured program in such a way that I coach one person the same way that I coach the next person. The thing that makes it so strategic and so unique is that everyone comes with a different story. Everyone comes with a different need as far as grief goes. So when you're a grief coach or a life coach, you have to, the skill of listening is so important. You have to make sure you're listening 80% and talking 20%, and so that the person feels that you are connecting with them and you're making it about them and not telling them what it is they need to do. You're helping them to identify certain patterns of behavior and helping them to understand that it is a real thing. You're not losing your mind and going crazy. You're putting a technical term to it so that they can be like, wow, that is a thing. Okay, well, I feel good about that now. You know? And so I do one-on-one coaching, I do group coaching, and now I'm going into churches and doing workshops and symposiums for the topic of grief and loss that a lot of pastors find it hard to talk about with their congregation.
Yes.
You know, and I package that in such a way that, you know, if you really want to show your congregation that you care for them and that you love them and you want to be able to address this thing that they're going through and you just don't know how, hire an expert in the field to come in and to be able to give them that. So that way you're not competing, you know, with the person that's coming in. You're providing an experience. You're providing a service for your congregation to help them meet a need that a pastor can't hone into. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Wow, that's amazing. Listen, we're going to post your information on how to contact you on this video because we want to help as many people as we can. Like Alvin said, this is a club we did not want to be a part of. We didn't ask to be a part of.
Yes.
It's just.
But we're here and we're going to do what we can to help others move through this stage.
And I'm supporting you 100%.
And anything that we can do for you, you let us know.
I will. And you already have. You always have.
No problem.
So thank you so much. And we are going to end this episode with a thank you. We are grateful.
Thank you so much.
And so we're looking forward to talking with you again.
Absolutely. Anytime. I love you guys.
Love you too. You have a great evening.
Thank you.
Folks, this is Alvin.
And this is Marcy. And this is Life and Marriage with Alvin and Marcy.
Have a good night.
Take care.